Hello, today we're going to talk about Wave Wi-Fi network router products. You can find them on the website, wavewifi.com. Under Products and Solutions, you can find network routers, among other products. There's the current MBR 500 and MBR 550. One is capable of cellular connections in addition to being a WAN source management router and creates a network for your boat. So the 500 series does not have cellular capability, and the 550 series does have it. There's a new product coming out called the MNC, and the MNC also has a 1200 and a 1250. Okay, so the 1200 series does not have cellular capability built in, and the 1250 does. So that's what difference the 50 means on that. The existing MBR products, the 500 and 550, have 100 megabit ports and 2.4 gigahertz Wi-Fi for inside your boat, built-in access point. The new coming MNC 1200 series has both 2.4 and 5 gigahertz Wi-Fi for inside your boat, as well as 1 gigabit ports. Okay, you can find this information on wavewifi.com, like I said, under products and network routers. Let's go ahead and have a look at the interface. When you first log in, there's no password required by default, but you can set one. The first page you come to is the router status or device status, and at the top of every page there's a question mark or a book icon right next to the page title that'll take you to context sensitive help for that particular page. So every page has that. Alright, so you're looking at when you first log in, when you're on the router status device status page, you're looking at the ports that the router has available, and most of these are plug-in ports that are on the back of the router. The blue port, blue colored port on the back of the router is going to be this main LAN, and the other ports to the left of the blue port are going to be yellow, and those are 3 WAN ports and 1 guest LAN port. Okay, the series that ends in 50, okay, 550 and 1250, they have built-in cellular 3G, 4G capability. So you have this virtual port that isn't an actual physical plug-in port in the back of the router, but it's a built-in SIM reader and 3G, 4G capability built in. So that's a virtual port. Okay, when you have an internet connection WAN device plugged in, for example, I have a Wave Road Pro DB plugged in, you'll have a manage button right here that you can click on and actually get to the web page for managing that device. Okay, so you also get an indication that it's currently in manual mode using Wave Wi-Fi as the internet source. Click here to switch to automatic mode. When you plug in an internet connection device, you want to click on it, right? And click on this OK to switch the internet source. That's manually switching. There's also automatic switching between internet sources. You notice that this auto over here, auto number 1, auto number 2, auto number 3. I currently have Wave Wi-Fi as my automatic number 1, and mobile data is automatic number 2, and VSAT, if I had a VSAT connector, would be automatic number 3. You can click here on the main router device status page and switch to automatic mode, and that'll start taking effect. User access. By default, the router lets everybody go on the internet and there's no restrictions, but you can set restrictions, and there are login codes like passwords that they can sign on with to allow them to go onto the internet, where you can set restrictions on that usage. Okay, login codes in Mac authentication is an example, but you see the other ones here. Alright, there's also a guest login code that can be enabled, disabled, and you click update. This page, the connected users, shows all of the devices or users that are connected to your network and how much data they consume and their status, etc. All of the headers on a lot of things on the pages on these routers have a question mark, so you can click on it and get help on what does that heading mean, what does that column mean. Alright, login codes can be created and have a description. You can set the maximum download speed, maximum upload speed, and a limit on how much data they can download. Like I said again, remember there's a question mark over here to help you with these things. You need help, but device, the usage type is per device or shared. Shared means more than one user is using that login code. Okay, you have a usage cycle, how long you want that to be in effect, and automatically renew. Okay, so if you had a limitation on their data usage, you could set how long that would be in effect and when it would renew, if it would renew. The WAN port, okay, so you can specify a port that this applies to. Alright. MAC management, there are MAC address friendly names, and some are discovered by default when your devices connect, but you can set them right here. You can add friendly names for MAC addresses in case you need to. Allowed MAC addresses are the ones that are allowed to go on the network, on the internet, and blocked are the ones that are blocked. Okay, domain blacklist is where you can block access to certain domains on the internet. The example they give is youtube.com. If you put a dot in front of, for example, .youtube.com, it blocks everything with youtube.com in that name. So www.youtube.com or whatever. Okay, that blocks them, your users from being able to go there. Disclaimer. Remember, there was a setting in the connected users of disclaimer, so they might have to agree to a disclaimer in order to go on the internet. You can modify this and update it. Okay, have your own title and your own text for your disclaimer. Usage report, you can run usage reports on your users and find out, what devices were connected when, what code they use, and how much data they used. So you can run reports on that. Okay, settings. On the first page of setting is admin options. You can set your switchover mode for the failover I was talking about on the main device status, router status page. Manual or automatic, you can set that here. You can set a password to log into the router if you need to do so. And you can use the default login page that's built in, or you can make a custom one. Okay. Port forwarding is used if you run some kind of service inside the your boat network, a web server, for example, a mail server. You can forward ports from public, which is outside, to private, which is inside. So you need to know what port or port range. Like web server port 80, SMTP email is port 25. So you can forward from the outside to the inside. Protocols, TCP, UDP, or both, and what IP address on your network that goes to. So if you forwarded port 80, you got to know what IP address on your network that port 80, that web server is going to run on. That's port forwarding. Network settings. We can configure all of the ports. For example, mobile data. We often have to enter the APN, the access point name, to help log on to a cellular network. But there's other settings in here that can be modified as well. You can limit the data usage on your ports from the settings, network settings tab. You can limit the usage. gigabytes, megabytes, kilobytes, the cycle, start day, how many days, okay. Yeah, these settings don't typically need to be set, but if they needed authentication on the cell network, I would go there. Main LAN is your main local area network on your boat. This could plug to one computer. Typically you do that when you're setting it up. It could plug to an Ethernet switch and have multiple things connected to it. The whole boat network could be on the main LAN. Okay. Just FYI, there's also a guest LAN, and the guest LAN restricts access to the router management, this pages we're looking at. So if somebody is connected to guest LAN, they won't be able to go to these pages to change anything on the router. Alright, the three other ports, this is port 1, 2, 3, and 4 are wide area network, which are internet connections. And by the way, these ports are switchable, but I believe you have to have at least one WAN connection, one internet connection port. It won't let you make them all on a LAN port. Okay, we obtain an IP address automatically because the internet device like a Wave Rogue Pro provides an IP address and other settings to us. This could be done manually, but you got to know what you're doing in order to do that. If you do it, you can cause yourself not to connect either to the device or to the internet. So you got to be careful. All of the WAN settings are pretty much the same. Keep in mind, again, you can limit your data usage by gigabytes, megabytes, kilobytes. And you can set a cycle for how long that's in effect. Okay. Guest LAN was the special one. Notice it has a checkbox for guest LAN. If you take that off, it'll no longer act as a guest LAN, and users connected to that port could get to the user interface. Okay. You can also bridge ports together. For example, port 5 guest LAN and main LAN can be bridged together. When you do that, they're both going to take on the same name depending on where you configured it from. If you do it from main LAN and you bridge ports 1 and 5, they're both going to be called main LAN because they're bridged together and they're going to get the same IP. Okay. Okay, the next thing coming up is miscellaneous in the settings. We have our router serial number here. We also have a question mark where we can, or a book icon that we can get help. This would enable remote assistance, for example, so Wave Wi-Fi can come in and help you with a problem. You can reboot your device. You can update your firmware. It should be noted that when you're connected to the internet, you might get a banner like you see mine that's sent from Wave Wi-Fi servers that says you have a firmware update available, and you can click on it and it will let you download the firmware, and then you can know where you saved it on your computer, and you can upload it to the router right here, and then a diskette icon would show up, and you can click on that and it'll update the firmware. Alright, local access points. Again, the 500 and the 550, the 500 series has only one access point. It's 2.4 gigahertz built in. The MNC series have two. One is 2.4 gigahertz and one is 5 gigahertz. Okay. These names are configurable, as are the passwords for them. Okay. By default, the password is the serial number of the router. Okay, you can also change what port these are linked to. Notice we could put a built-in access point on port 5, make it a guest. It's like making a guest Wi-Fi network. Okay, so you change, if you changed the port to 5, you're putting it on the guest LAN basically. By default, it's already on 1, so it's on the main LAN. But keep in mind, you can manage your router via Wi-Fi. A lot of people do that. As long as this is on port 1, you log in by Wi-Fi, you can get to these web management pages to manage the router. If you change both of them to 5 and then you log on by Wi-Fi, you will not be able to get to the user interface, okay, because it becomes a guest port. It becomes a wireless guest port. How about that? That's pretty cool. Alright, notice again, icon, either a question mark or a book for help right here. We'll look again, just for fun. So we notice that we have help for every page that we're on. Okay, social media, just as some links to there's our website, wavewifi.com, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter pages for Wave Wi-Fi. And again, the user manual is built in. You can also print the user manual. Okay, which is nice. And that's pretty much it for now. Thanks for watching.